My name is Emily, and I'm a 44-year-old woman. After a long, exhausting day at the office, I find myself in front of the bathroom mirror, pausing for a moment as I take off my work clothes. First my skirt, then my blouse. I stood there in just my bra and lace stockings, catching my own reflection. It had been a long time since I'd really looked at myself like that, really seen myself, and for a second I felt a spark I hadn't felt in a long time. I worked hard and kept myself in shape, but somewhere along the way, I had stopped. I had stopped seeing myself as desirable. I was lost in my own thoughts, savoring the moment and the soft feel of lace against my skin, tracing delicate patterns along my waist and shoulders. The quiet, almost meditative state was soothing after the long day, and I barely registered the distant sound of the main door opening and closing. But then, suddenly, I heard footsteps coming down the corridor, fast and purposeful. Before I could collect myself, the bathroom door opened and there was Daniel. He froze, eyes wide. We both stood motionless for a few seconds, taking in the spectacle. I could see the astonishment in his eyes as he stood there, clearly taken by surprise, wondering whether to turn away or say something. He immediately stammered an apology and fumbled to lock the door as he tried to leave, but I startled myself by gently calling out, "No need to be shy." There was a burst of boldness, a unique confidence that came from somewhere I couldn't put my finger on. Maybe it was just the feeling of being seen, of being vulnerable without having to hide it. Daniel's eyes were filled with wonder and astonishment, which only encouraged me. I grabbed his arm and stopped him from shutting the door completely. In a soft, calm voice, I told him he didn't have to go. There was a spark of excitement in the air, a kind of mutual understanding that somehow felt natural and real. I mentioned to him that I'd noticed his curiosity and fascination even before this moment. He looked back at me, almost speechless, as if trying to process what was happening, a mixture of intrigue and amazement on his face. And before I knew it, it was as if we were both testing the waters. But with each passing second, the hesitation faded, replaced by a mutual trust and curiosity. It was as if time had stopped and nothing else existed in this small place. My fingers found their way into his hair, gently tangling it and drawing him closer. There was something about the way he took my hands and moved gently down my back that was both comforting and exciting. His touch was both careful and confident, exploring in a way that made me feel grounded and safe, as if he wanted to understand every detail, every movement, like a quiet exchange of trust between us. I caught sight of our reflection in the mirror behind us, and it heightened the moment, making it feel even more intense, more real. The reflection captured the vulnerability and warmth that surrounded us, adding a layer of awareness that made it feel more than just a fleeting moment. His hands were gentle, yet deliberate, moving along my waist and lingering over the lace of my stockings, sending a quiet thrill through me. There was something real and connected about the way he held me, a quiet energy that filled the room and made everything feel meaningful and lasting. After a moment, we moved from the small space in the bathroom to my bedroom, where everything felt more comfortable, like a quiet sanctuary that held the warmth of our shared connection. As Daniel entered and followed, I felt a mixture of anticipation and calm, a sense of trust and openness that made everything feel natural. The way he looked at me, with a softness that seemed both curious and serious, reassured me that this moment was more than a passing encounter. It was a genuine shared experience. I gently led him to sit on the edge of the bed. As I knelt beside him, we continued to explore the warmth between us, sharing soft, lingering kisses and light touches. I ran my hands over his shoulders and neck, following the curve of his jaw as I took in every detail. He mirrored my movements with his hands, moving along my arms, feeling the texture of the lace and the warmth of my skin. There was no need to rush. We just enjoyed the quiet, easy rhythm that developed between us, like a kind of dance. There was a palpable energy in the air, growing steadily, but there was no sense of pressure. It was more about discovering and appreciating each other in a way that felt honest and vulnerable. As I felt his hands move down my back and sides, there was a gentle exchange of trust, an unspoken acknowledgement of the comfort and curiosity we shared. He ran his hands over the lace, taking in every detail, his movements both attentive and caring. I shifted slightly, moving closer to him, wrapping my arms around his shoulders. With each movement, it felt like a reassurance that this moment was as special to him as it was to me. I could see the sincerity in his expression, the way he watched every little gesture, making every second feel precious. The sense of comfort and trust between us deepened as we continued, enjoying each other's company in the silence of the room. There was something beautiful about its simplicity. No need for grand gestures or words, just the genuine presence we shared. For a moment, it felt as if we were wrapped up in our own world, free from the stresses of the day and the usual routines. Then suddenly, a sound broke the silence. A doorbell rang from the hallway, loud and surprising. My head spun around for a moment. "Ethan!" I murmured, a jolt of recognition hitting me as I realized he must have come home earlier than expected. We exchanged a look, instantly understanding what needed to be done, and we both laughed softly at the timing of it all. I quickly straightened my clothes, running a hand over my hair to make sure everything was in place, while Daniel did the same, adjusting himself with a quick, amused glance in my direction. It was a playful, knowing look. We all sat down to dinner as if nothing had happened, telling stories of our days, laughing and enjoying each other's company. Beneath the surface, though, I could still feel the warmth of our shared connection, a quiet understanding between Daniel and me. That lingered, hinting at something more. The next evening, I relaxed in my room, letting the events of the day fade away. It was a quiet time for me, something I looked forward to every evening. But as I lay there, lost in thought, I heard a soft knock at the door. I looked up in surprise to see Daniel standing in the doorway. He had a look in his eyes that was both curious and excited, a spark of familiarity mixed with the thrill of the unexpected. He entered the room with a soft smile, shaking his head slightly as if he couldn't believe what he was about to say. "Yesterday was crazy," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but filled with sincerity. "I can't stop thinking about it." There was a pause, a beat where neither was, and it drew him closer. And as he sat down beside me, there was a calm in the way we looked at each other, a sense of trust that made every moment feel relaxed and natural. He guided me with a gentle but sure touch, turning me so that my back was lightly pressed against him. His movements were neither rushed nor hesitant. Every gesture felt deliberate, as if he knew exactly what he wanted and how to communicate it without words. I could feel the warmth of his chest against me, his breath stirring my hair, bringing a comforting sense of calm, even as my own breathing became uneven. The room seemed quieter than before, the sounds around us fading until there was only the gentle rhythm of our breaths and the steady beat of my heart. His hand rested on my shoulder for a moment, and the weight of it felt grounding, like an anchor that kept me fully anchored in this moment. I closed my eyes, letting my senses take in every little detail, the faint scent of his cologne, the warmth that radiated from his skin, and the barely audible rustle of fabric as he moved. His presence was powerful, yet comforting, making me feel both vulnerable and protected, a strange and wonderful paradox. I felt a surge of energy go through me, a mixture of anticipation and surrender. My breaths grew deeper and slower, drawn out as I tried to keep myself calm. Yet there was something undeniably exciting about feeling so close, with no barriers, no walls. His arm found its way around me, pulling me closer until every inch of space between us dissolved. The steady rhythm of his breathing was soothing, as if he was creating a quiet world just for the two of us, a place where time slowed down and every touch mattered. At first, he moved with a softness, as if sensing it, the rhythm allowing us both to adapt to the nervousness in my breathing. Caught, a momentary shiver ran through me, a reaction I could barely control. I felt the warmth of his hand on my waist, the sensation delicate but electric, sparking every nerve as his fingers brushed my skin. There was a softness to his movements that made me feel seen, respected, and completely alive. But then, with a slight shift, he changed pace, moving more purposefully. I could feel him exhale as he became more determined, as if he'd decided to let go of the careful control he'd maintained up to that point. A shiver ran through me as he held me close. Hard breaths mingled, and the pace he set was exhilarating, leaving no room for hesitation, only an unspoken understanding. His movements matched my own in a perfect wordless conversation, each movement drawing me deeper into the moment. I had tried to keep my composure, but now I found myself breathing louder, letting go of restraint, unable to hold back the response that was building inside me. My heart was beating faster, the rhythm in sync with his own, until every sensation blurred together in a kind of focused intensity. I felt like I was floating, like time had lost its meaning, and the only thing that mattered was this feeling, this connection. His hand at my waist tightened slightly, a gesture that brought me back to the present, grounding me in the warmth and comfort he provided. I found myself surrendering, letting go of any lingering thoughts or worries, and just being in the moment with him. As we found our rhythm, I realized how natural it felt to be close, to trust him and let him guide me. There was something unspoken, an unspoken understanding between us. My breathing had become deep and steady, though I could feel it ragged now and again. As he moved more quickly, I could feel my heartbeat echoing through me, as if each beat was in perfect harmony with his. He leaned in, his forehead brushing against my hair, and I could feel the warmth in his eyes, a softness that filled me with both serenity and excitement. Every breath felt like a step into uncharted territory, yet I felt safe because he made a space just for us when everything else melted away. I wanted to show my gratitude for his tenderness, his patience, and the way he seemed to know exactly what I needed, without me having to say anything. As he held me in his arms, I felt completely free. My heart felt like it was going to explode from the overwhelming combination of feelings: exhilaration, warmth, comfort, and something deeper, a sense of belonging. Every touch was a comfort, a subtle promise. And as I let go of my last restraint, a sense of calm came over me. The fast pace he was taking matched the intensity of our feelings, and I realized I didn't have to hold back or keep quiet. I let myself enjoy it fully, surrendering to the sensations. And for a moment, everything else stopped. As soon as we finished, I took a few seconds to collect myself and felt a peaceful, contented warmth that remained even as I got up to start the rest of the evening. I went to the bathroom to straighten my hair and clean up, taking a quick look in the mirror before heading to the kitchen to prepare dinner. The familiar sounds of chopping vegetables and the gentle sizzle of the oven filled the air. I set the table, grounding myself in the routine of daily life, occasionally glancing over my shoulder to see Daniel tidying up around the house. His quiet presence added to the atmosphere of ease that pervaded the place. A little later, my husband arrived home, his familiar footsteps announcing his presence. As he entered, he greeted us with his usual kindness, patting Daniel on the shoulder and smiling softly at me. We all gathered around the table, and I served lunch. I felt a modest sense of pleasure, happy that everything looked perfect. As we began to eat, my husband turned to us and inquired about our day with his usual interest. Daniel spoke first, sharing a few examples from his studies, his face beaming as he described a particularly interesting conversation in his history class. I smiled, feeling a sense of satisfaction at how passionately he spoke and how genuine his joy was. My husband listened intently, asking questions here and there, clearly engaged in the conversation and curious to hear what Daniel had to say. Then it was my turn, and I shared a bit about my own day at work. I told them about a new project I was working on, taking care to keep things light and interesting. My husband nodded, giving me his full attention, and Daniel listened too, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The meal felt cozy and warm, filled with familiar conversation, laughter, and the gentle hum of shared contentment. The thought stayed with me as we finished eating and cleaned up together, everyone working in their familiar roles, quietly significant. It was a thought I kept with me as I prepared for bed, and a faint grin crossed my lips as I fell asleep.